What's going on, everyone? So, we got the reports from Rich Paul, and he relayed in that four teams had reached out to him about a potential LeBron James trade, right? Trying to gauge if LeBron James really wants to be traded. Rich Paul ensured that, hey, LeBron hasn't had conversations about being traded. There is no, oh, I might be traded in the future. There's nothing in that regard. But the question was, okay, what were the four teams, right? What four teams were, right? The thought was, it was the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Cavaliers, and the New York Knicks. Well, we got those four teams revealed, so I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about the potential, what would be the packages and kind of scale and rank them. Again, I want to be clear. I don't believe LeBron is going to be traded. If it does happen, it happens. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think LeBron is going to at least finish this year. I mean, history tells you he will, right? He always honors his contracts. So we'll see how this all plays out. Rich Paul kind of squashed a lot of the noise and the buzz that was generated and going around. Now, a lot of people, I'm already seeing the comments, right? People think that's just kind of, PR, right? Maybe it is, right? We don't know. We don't know where LeBron's at. We don't know what LeBron's thinking. We don't know what the Lakers are at and what the Lakers are thinking. We're going off of the telephone game and hoping that we understand. We all have our different opinions and perspectives and all that stuff, and that's great, right? Makes for great conversation. But at the end of the day, I personally don't believe he's going to be traded. I think he'll finish this year and then kind of re-navigate and figure out what is he going to do. I do think he will play another year beyond this year. If it's with the Lakers, that I don't know. But I do think he'll play at least one more year after this year because his other son will be in the league at that point. So I could see him maybe, doing the farewell tour with the Cavs, or kind of going to a team with his son, whichever team drafts his other son, go play with them for a year and then retires and rides off into the sunset. But we'll see. Time will tell. Anyway, I want to get into the four teams that were announced. And three of them were who we all expected, right? The Warriors, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The fourth team is the interesting one. It wasn't the Knicks. It was the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, look, it's Clippers' little brother. They wanted LeBron many moons ago when he chose the Lakers. I don't think LeBron would go to the Clippers personally. That's just me. I mean, if he wanted to go to the Clippers, he had his chance to go to the Clippers on several occasions. Didn't. He wanted to go to the Lakers because of the Lakers' history and legacy and all that stuff. He is a student of the sport. But I do think it is kind of funny that anybody that is tied to the Lakers, the Clippers want, right? The Lakers wanted Brook Lopez. They go and sign Brook Lopez. I feel like the Lakers did that just so the Clippers would sign Brook Lopez. But we'll see. Time will tell. Anyway, so those are the four teams, right? Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers may actually be the best potential return for the Lakers, because Cleveland would have to trade Darius Garland as well as Jared Allen, plus another player or two most likely. And that would take, almost all of these trades would have to be multiple teams. It'd probably have to be two or three teams. But the reason I think that the Cavs trade would yield the best return is the Lakers don't need Darius Garland nor Jared Allen, right? So they could use those two to then go and make trades, right? Get other teams involved. Find a team, what team really wants Jared Allen, right? So maybe you can make a move to land a couple pieces for a Jared Allen, right? And then what team really wants a Darius Garland, right? Add a couple pieces for Darius Garland. So Lakers could potentially solve all their issues through various trades with Darius Garland and Jared Allen. Or something that I proposed in a previous video was the idea of maybe looping in the Milwaukee Bucks, right? If this again was to happen, if I'm Rob Pelinka, I'm telling Luka, hey, I can't do it, but you can do it. Why don't you get on the phone with Giannis and tell him that we're trading LeBron James and you should come over and request a trade to the Lakers, right? Because then at that point, you could send a package of Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Austin Reeves, plus whatever else. Dalton Connect, throw in your 31 first, whatever you have to do, right? To be able to pair Giannis and Luka. And I think it'd be a win-win. If you want more kind of a breakdown of that idea, I made a full video about it. Just, a fun conversation video is all that was. But Cavs, I think, have the potential to be the best return for the Lakers, just because, again, what you could get, like Darius Garland's got some real value, Jared Allen's got some real value, and it's one of those things where Cleveland would have to trade those two. So it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, no, they're never going to do that, because no, if they want LeBron, they would have to trade those two guys just for salary purposes, right? Next up, I'll talk about, you can make an argument depending on, again, what these teams are willing to kind of give up and break down. The Warriors, there's two kind of paths. One is just like a bunch of players, right? And essentially send out their entire roster outside of like Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry. But that's really difficult, right? Like, and the Lakers have a full roster spot. So you'd have to find teams to do all this stuff. So the reported idea was Jimmy Butler plus a first or two to the Lakers for LeBron James. So the Warriors have basically all of their first from now to 2032. And so they might be willing to give up a first or two in order to land LeBron, primarily just for Steph Curry. And then Jimmy Butler, like Jimmy didn't really want to be in Golden State. He's kind of just like accepted it, but he didn't really want to be in Golden State. Also, Jimmy Butler's would give the Lakers kind of that co-star, that other star, but also his contract lines up to the cap flexibility of 2027, right? So it kind of would be this potential win-win. Lakers would also get more firsts, so that way they could go trade Rui and, Kleba and everyone else to now go get and make those other moves. Maybe you go get another star, maybe you go get, an upgrade. Great, because Jimmy Butler could slot in at your 3. So you'd have Luka Austin Reeves, Jimmy Butler, DeAndre Ayton. Can you maybe go get a two-way 3 and D4? And now you have potentially 2-3 first-round picks plus, several expiring contracts plus Dalton Connect to go get another guy. Or if that star does become available, right? Like, well, now you have 3 firsts, which the Warriors first could potentially be really good, right? So you'd have potentially 3 firsts plus Austin Reeves, plus Dalton Connect, right? Plus Rui Hachimura and all this stuff to now go, like, let's say Giannis was to become available, you could go and now put together a decent package to maybe go get him. You'd still probably need the kind of push from Giannis Antetokounmpo like you saw with Anthony Davis. But again, just kind of a thought. The problem would be the kind of stack trade, right? Because you kind of go through their roster. Okay, how do they get there? Well, most of their guys are all in like $7 million contracts. So it would start with Jonathan Kuminga. You'd have to do a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga. But how much is Jonathan Kuminga really going to make? Right? Like, you're not paying him $40 million, right? $50 million. You're not doing that. So let's say for the Lakers, they would want to do 20, maybe 25 million, right? Like, so let's say, let's call it like 22 million. Let's just say 20 million for easy math, right? So he's 20 million. You still need to get to another, basically like 35 million that needs to be sent out. So how do you get there? Well, you could do guys like, on top of that, Moses Moody, but he's making under 6 million, right? Okay, you could do Podziemski. He's making 3.5. So let's call those two together, roughly 9 million. Right, so you still need another $20 million that you have to get to. You could add in a Buddy Hield, right, which would get you $8 million, but you still need another 12 plus million that you got to send out, right? So you can see where this becomes a problem. Post is making, 450,000, right? Like, it's an unrealistic path for a team like the Warriors. Like, the only way the Warriors could truly get LeBron James would be if the Lakers were willing to give, Jonathan Kuminga $30 million a year, and then you could kind of fill in with Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, and Podziemski. But then, like, for the Warriors, you're sending out like your, half of your roster, your depth, your rotation, everything. But you could argue you have Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, Draymond Green, and Post. Like, that might be enough to win you a championship. One last hoorah with the LeBron James and Steph Curry. Maybe go bring in like a DeAnthony Melton and stuff and kind of round out the roster potentially. I just think the Golden State route is probably a little unlikely unless LeBron is like, no, I want to go play with Steph. And then at that point, I think the Warriors would probably do the Jimmy Butler thing. And I think that could make sense for the Lakers because, again, you're getting back a another star. You kind of get a year to see how Austin Reeves and Luka look together as like your kind of main guys, main offensive engines, while Jimmy Butler's doing all the dirty work and still can go get you 30 on any given night, right? Like that kind of rotation with DeAndre Ayton, and then go use the assets and stuff to try to go get another guy at like your 4 spot. That could be an option. The Dallas Mavericks have several paths to get there. Dallas, I'm starting with Daniel Gafford and Max Christie. Right, so Daniel Gafford and Max Christie, right? You get the 3-and-D guy, you get Max Christie, who they probably should have kept, if we're all being honest. And Max Christie's making $7.1 million, right? You add in Daniel Gafford and his new contract, right? So you're essentially, little like 40% of the way there, right? So then it's like, okay, you could throw in a PJ Washington is probably the other path, which is like 15.5 million. And then you'd have to throw in, maybe like a Dwight Powell or something like that. And maybe a Najee Harris, right? So Lakers would get back, it would be more of a depth trade, right? Like, okay, you got now the depth necessary to maybe potentially compete. You could slot in PJ Washington at that 4. So you could go with like Luka, Austin Reeves. You'd still have like Rui and picks and everything else. So you kind of in this spot, maybe you kind of go a little small and have Max Christie play the 3, kind of go defensive route. You have Daniel Gafford as a backup, right? You could go with like Najee Marshall if you wanted to at the 3. So you could go like Luka, Reeves, Najee, PJ, and Ayton as like your 5 guys. And then you'd have a bunch of depth and versatility. You could still go sign guys. So that could be an option for the Lakers as far as the Dallas Mavericks trade goes. Supposedly, Dallas only wants him off of a buyout, but supposedly that was the thing with the Cavs too. I don't really buy that. I think if they have an opportunity to get LeBron, I think that they would get LeBron, right? Especially if they don't have to trade any of like their main guys. Right? I think that you kind of make that push. Not just that, but like the Dallas Mavericks are trying to put together the 2020 Lakers anyway. Right? They just got Frank Vogel and Phil Handy and all this stuff. So I think Dallas, if they could, would trade for LeBron. I think Anthony Davis would also push for it. I also think Kyrie would push for it. So your 2 main stars would be screaming at the Dallas Mavericks front office and Nico Harris like, dude, go get LeBron James, right? Let's go try to win a championship here. And they might be the best team in all of basketball, right? And then some. And you'd still have depth. You still have versatility. Anthony Davis would have to play the 5 again, which he wasn't really thrilled about. But it might be one of those things where it's like, okay, like look at what we could have here. Like I'm willing to play the 5, we can go win a championship. So I don't know, it might be something interesting. The Clippers, right? The Clippers have an interesting potential, right? Because they do have a lot of guys that make a ton of sense for the Lakers that the Lakers could really need, right? Like Chris Dunn, for example, would make a world of sense. Derrick Jones Jr. was excellent, had his best season alongside Luka Doncic, that athletic 3-and-D wing type guy that has that chemistry. So your bare minimum starting there with Derrick Jones, as well as a Chris Dunn. Problem is, again, that gets you to roughly 15 million. So you still need to maximize and get the rest of the salary filler. Problem is, I don't think that they would trade like Ivaka Zubac or anything like that. So you're kind of trying to piece contracts together. Now they did just get John Collins. So maybe you could do something where you get John Collins done. Because if they're going to get LeBron, they don't need John Collins now because LeBron's going to slot in at the 4. Right, so for them, it would be something like James Harden. Maybe now they go get Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and Ivaka Zubac. Right, so now you could do something with like John Collins, Chris Dunn, and then a Derrick Jones Jr., and that gets you pretty close. Now you're about 10 million off. You kind of piece it together the other route, and then they'd still have some depth. They'd still have a couple pieces that you could work out. Maybe you loop a 3rd team involved. Both teams are under the apron, so like they could make it work. And I mean, if you're the Lakers, I mean, you get athleticism, defense, right? Like you could literally start Chris Dunn. Like you go Luka, Dunn. I mean, they probably go Austin Reeves, but like Luka, Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., and then John Collins with DeAndre Ayton. Right? Again, they probably go Austin Reeves. You're probably looking at Luka Reeves, Derrick Jones Jr. with a John Collins and a DeAndre Ayton. and then have like a Chris Dunn off the bench who can be that point of attack defensive guy. And then, maybe you can get Bradley Beal. I don't know. Like, you kind of piece that together. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. What do you think? Which one is your favorite? If it were to happen again, just like a conversation video, because we got the news on who those teams were. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.